ranking the top 10 shooting guards for the 2021-2022 NBA season. 10. R.J. Barrett, New York. 2020-2021 stats: 17.6 points per game, 5.8 rebounds per game, 3.0 assists per game, 1.7 3-point made, 40.1 3-point %. A player who saw a sizable jump in production and efficiency from his rookie year to his sophomore campaign was New York Knicks 2 guard R.J. Barrett, who just cracks the top 10 of our ranking based on our expectation that we'll see another jump out of him in 2021-2022. The area where Barrett most improved was as an outside shooter, where the Canadian went from shooting 32.0% in his first year to an impressive 40.1% in 2019-2020 on much higher volume. Barrett also cut slightly back on turnovers and upped his free throw accuracy, though more work is needed in the latter respect, as Barrett doesn't get to the foul line nearly enough for a high-level scorer, and when he does get there, shoots only 74.6%. Another vital area for Barrett's development is as a finisher around the paint. According to NBA.com, among players with at least 300 field goal attempts from within 5 feet of the basket last season, Barrett's 52.8% on such shots was the second lowest success rate. It goes without saying, that's a brutal mark, especially for a young player with a level of athleticism such as Barrett's. If Barrett can improve his finishing down low, developing a more reliable right hand would be a great start. It wouldn't be shocking for him to become a 20-point-per-game scorer at some point soon, perhaps as early as next season. 9. Caris LeVert, Indiana. 2020-2021 stats: 20.2 points per game, 4.6 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game, 44.1 field goals %. From a cancer scare sidelining him for a good portion of last season to putting up over 20 points per contest over the final 35 games of the season with the Indiana Pacers, Caris LeVert's journey in 2020-2021 was nothing short of inspirational. Now fully healthy and given the reins to be a team's top perimeter scoring option for pretty much the first time in his prime, 2021-2022 could be a big campaign for the 27-year-old with 5 years of service in the NBA. Even after coming back from the health issues he had last season, LeVert still ranked in the good range as both a pick-and-roll scorer and in transition, for Synergy Sports, as a member of the Pacers, with the former area being where the creative scorer really thrives. LeVert's blend of herky-jerky movements and creativity as a passer makes him a load to slow down when running the pick-and-roll, a statement backed up by LeVert's 74th percentile score. According to Synergy, as a pick-and-roll playmaker, passes included along with scoring opportunities. LeVert produced 1.031 points per possession on pick-and-roll sets, passes included, last season with the Pacers, a better mark than LeBron James, 1.014, and Brandon Ingram, 1.018, among other stars, proving just how effective he was on those chances. With a full offseason and preseason to settle in even further with Indiana, we expect big things out of LeVert in 2021-202, especially if he can get his three-point shooting back up to 2019-2020 levels when he hit 36.4% of his outside opportunities. 8. Klay Thompson, Golden State. One of the most exciting aspects of the upcoming 2021-222 NBA campaign will be the return of star 2 guard Klay Thompson, who should be making his return to action after being out since mid-June 2019 due to multiple major injuries, including one to his ACL and another to his Achilles. The latest reports indicate that the Golden State Warriors are shooting for Christmas Day to be Thompson's target return date, meaning his absence would be nearly 2.5 years long from when he last played, which gave us some pause as far as where to rank him in this exercise. If Thompson looks like his vintage self next season, there's no doubt he'd far outpace his place on this list, as a healthy Thompson is arguably a top 5 shooting guard in the game, if not higher, thanks to his awesome mix of historically great outside shooting and tough multi-positional defending. There's just no guarantee we'll see that version of Thompson, at least not right away in 2021-2022. Here's hoping he does, however, as Thompson is one of the most likable stars in the game and no elite athlete deserves to have their prime years ripped as he did. 7. C.J. McCollum, Portland. 2020-2021 stats: 23.1 points per game, 3.9 rebounds per game, 4.7 assists per game, 3.6 3-point made, 40.2 3-point %. from the second year of his career up until 2019 to 2020, Trail Blazers shooting guard C.J. McCollum attempted 66.2% of his shot attempts from two-point range versus 33.8% of his shots coming from beyond the arc. McCollum changed that in a big way last season, however, attempting just 52.5% of his shots from two-point range while putting up a career-high 47.5% of his shots from three. The results were astounding, as McCollum put up the best swing rating of his career in 2020-2021. Portland was 6.7 points per 100 possessions better with their starting two-guard on the floor, scored a career-best 23.1 points per game while also grading out with the highest box plus/minus plus 3.3, and win shares per 48 minutes, 0.141, of his time in the NBA. McCollum is the perfect case study for modern basketball, where we saw firsthand how much more effective a player can be if they just change in their deep two-point attempts for three-pointers, and if other all-star level players like McCollum do similarly, they might see comparable results. Of course, that would require they be as deadly shooting the basketball as McCollum is, especially off the dribble, and not many players in the league are as good as the Blazers guard in that respect. 6. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Oklahoma City. 2020-2021 stats: 23.7 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game, 5.9 assists per game, 2.0 3-point made, 41.8 3-point %. Possessing almost artistic footwork and a pristine jump shot, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the most exciting young guards we have in the game today, one who appears to be on a monstrously high upward trajectory without much sign of slowing down. Efficiency-wise, very few players can match what Gilgeous-Alexander already is as a scorer at just 23 years old, as Synergy Sports ranked the Oklahoma City Thunder two-guard in the 80th percentile on offense for 2020-2021. Gilgeous-Alexander also received an excellent rating as a pick-and-roll ball handler last season, sitting in the 94th percentile after producing 1.116 points per possession on those opportunities. Among players with at least 300 possessions running the pick and roll, only Stephen Curry himself scored more points per possession than Gilgeous-Alexander in 2020-2021, a ridiculously impressive feat for the still blossoming shooting guard. In addition, Gilgeous-Alexander also ranked as an excellent scorer coming off screens and received very good ratings as an ISO scorer, as a spot-up shooter and on putbacks. Granted, Gilgeous-Alexander did only suit up in 35 games for the Thunder last season before going down with injury, so his numbers could have skewed south with a larger sample size. But, as you can tell by his ranking on this list, we expect Gilgeous-Alexander to be similarly impactful in 2021-2022, if not perhaps even better. He was that impressive last season. 5. Zach LaVine, Chicago. 2020-2021 stats: 27.4 points per game, 5.0 rebounds per game, 4.9 assists per game, 3.4 3-point made, 41.9 3-point %. Any way you slice it, Zach LaVine had the best season of his career in 2020-2021, putting up career-high marks in points, rebounds, assists and three-point shooting, as well as in various key advanced metrics, both of the catch-all and per-game variety. As such, LaVine cracked the top 5 of this ranking, a deserving honor for a player who has blossomed into one of the very best two guards in the game over recent years. The fact that LaVine followed up his strong season with the Chicago Bulls by being one of the most important players for Team USA at the Tokyo Olympics speaks highly of his ability to reach an even higher level in 2021-2022, as LaVine proved he can contribute to winning basketball as an Olympian. In particular, his defense looked as stingy and tough as ever over the summer, and if LaVine just can carry that effort over into a full NBA campaign, he could be able to cement himself as a perennial all-star going forward. 4. Donovan Mitchell, Utah. 2020-2021 stats: 26.4 points per game, 4.4 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists per game, 3.4 3-point made, 38.6 3-point %. If there were ever questions about Donovan Mitchell being a high-scoring but low-impact two-winning player, they were answered with aplomb last season, when the talented two-guard led the Utah Jazz to a campaign in which they were number 1 in the NBA in wins as well as in net rating. Mitchell answered those questions even more emphatically in the playoffs when he was able to take his game to an even higher level, putting up 32.3 points on 44.7% shooting from the floor and 43.5% shooting from beyond the arc over 10 games against elite competition. The analytics might still not be totally in love with him, as Mitchell averages out to roughly a top 30 position in metrics like box plus, minus, value over replacement player and win shares, but his playoff performances over recent years, explosive scoring ability and ridiculous bounce all lead us to one conclusion: Donovan Mitchell is one of the best shooting guards in basketball. And he's still got a chance to get even better. 3. Devin Booker, Phoenix. 2020-2021 stats: 25.6 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game, 1.93 point made, 48.4 field goals percent. Perhaps no player changed the perception around them as much as Devin Booker did this past season, going from being a guy considered by the critics to be a great stats on a bad team player to being one of the driving forces in an extremely impressive run to the finals for the Phoenix Suns. No longer can anyone question Booker's impact on winning, as, without its star shooting guard, there's no chance Phoenix makes it as far as they did in 2020-2021. And he did so with his three-point shot pretty much abandoning him, as Booker hit just 33.5% of his triples between the regular season and playoffs last year, a mark that should bump back up at least a bit in 2021-2022 based on the level of shooter Booker has proven to be in his career. Last season also saw Booker do some of his best scoring out of the pick and roll of his career. The former Kentucky standout produced 1.018 points per possessions out of such sets, a mark healthy enough to place him in the 84th percentile league-wide. With most of the 2020-2021 Suns set to return for another go-around next season, we expect another huge year out of Booker, perhaps even an All-NBA level campaign from the 24-year-old, which would be the first of his career. 2. Bradley Beal, Washington. 2020-2021 stats: 31.3 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game, 4.4 assists per game, 2.23 point made, 48.5 field goals percent. Coming off the first All-NBA campaign of his career, Bradley Beal has firmly established himself as the second best shooting guard in basketball over the past few seasons, making his place in this ranking unsurprising. Beal ranked second in the league in scoring last year, barraging his opponents out of the pick and roll, in isolation and transition, and spotting up with his feet set after coming off screens. Overall, Beal has become one of the most well-rounded explosive scorers in basketball, averaging nearly 31.0 points per game over the past two campaigns. Between 2019, 2020 and 2020-2021, only the equally explosive Damian Lillard has scored more total points than Beal, 3,906 to 3,619 respectively, which goes to show just how proficient Beal's bucket-getting has been recently. The ways he does his scoring, giving full-out effort on every single play, whether he has the ball or not, running around, coming off screens, attacking the basket viciously, has been beyond impressive too. Frankly, it looks exhausting, so kudos to Beal for being able to play that hard for roughly 36 minutes nightly. It's that level of scoring, as well as his underrated playmaking and defense, that has made Beal one of the two best shooting guards in the NBA since 2019-2020. 1. James Harden, Brooklyn. 2020-2021 stats: 24.6 points per game, 7.9 rebounds per game, 10.8 assists per game, 2.83 point made, 46.6 field goals percent. If we had done these rankings by tier, at the top would be James Harden in a level all on his own, followed by every other shooting guard. Harden has been that much better than everyone else at the position for years now, something backed up by just about every metric, advanced or raw, imaginable. Before we get started, for full disclosure, we went with Harden as a shooting guard as opposed to a point guard for our exercise based on Basketball Reference's positional estimates projecting that the 32-year-old spent 43% of his time with the Brooklyn Nets at the 2 versus 29% at lead guard, as well as due to the fact that if Harden and Kyrie Irving split time running point next campaign, it made more sense to us to list each at their historically more natural positions for our rankings. Now back to singing Harden's praises. If we look at league rankings for the various advanced statistics in 2020-2021, the only truly elite player on this entire list is Harden, as even Beal didn't rank higher than 21st overall in any of box plus, minus value over replacement player, player efficiency rating or win shares per 48 minutes. Harden, on the other hand, ranked 7th in box plus, minus and 10th in win shares per 48 minutes, 2 per game metrics that paint a clearer picture of the bearded two guard's impact last season considering how much time he missed with injury. That shouldn't come as a surprise, either, as Harden has mastered the modern game since coming into his prime, both with his foul-drawing gift and shot selection, avoiding the mid-range almost entirely and doing all of his damage from beyond the arc or. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.